Kevin Zay, in your opinion, is the QAnon movement becoming a bona fide cult? Someone who I was good friends with a while back chose to break off communications with me over my questioning some of the claims that have been made by those who consider themselves members. Hey, Kevin, thanks for the question. And yes, I do believe that we have the makings of a destructive cult in the QAnon movement. Now, I have not done a deep dive on QAnon. I've actually kind of avoided doing that and have only commented infrequently about it because I lob it as just another conspiracy theory. And obviously, it's sort of the, in vogue conspiracy theory of the day amongst us, in the political world. And this is where we get, by the way, political cults. We've seen cults of personality around politicians, but you also can get these culty group, sort of gatherings or collections or collectives around these political ideas. QAnon is not as I understand it, is not based or centered around religious ideals. It is centered around the idea of the deep state. And that Donald Trump is somehow a threat to this deep state, and that this has been going on for a long time, and there are, there's pedophiles connected with this, and this goes back to, I think, connects in some way with Pizzagate. And depending on how deep down the rabbit hole you go, you're going to find different flavors of this. I guarantee you that you will. Even without having done that, I've done enough deep dives down enough conspiracy rabbit holes that it really depends on who you're talking to as to what exactly the belief system is, how far does it go, who's involved exactly, and to what extent, what is Donald Trump doing about it, and how effective has he been. All of these questions will have different answers, depending on who you're talking about from what area or whatever. That's just generally a true thing about conspiracy theories in general. There is no one overarching flat earth theory. There are different ones. In fact, there's even infighting within the flat earth community about who is a valid or legit flat earther and who isn't. So I can't imagine it's a whole lot different in these other groups too, by extension of how the groups are just basically formed and put together. You mentioned, Kevin, that you had a friend of yours, a good friend, break off communications with you for being critical of it. That tends to indicate a mindset that is, fairly extreme, that's gone down that extremist rabbit hole. And they start feeling the need to separate themselves from others of different mindsets because they feel afraid of, somebody popping their balloon, somebody poking a hole in their logic and breaking it all apart for them, because the thing about conspiracy theories that I'll put out here again as foundational to all of them is, regardless of how the person came into it or why they think they believe it, regardless of what they tell you or even what they tell themselves, what you have in a very simple, not almost reductionist explanation here is that the conspiracy theory, the belief set, fulfills an emotional need that this person has. And to the degree that it fulfills that emotional need is the degree to which they will commit and become loyal and an ardent follower and a pusher and propagator of this belief set. So the more questions that it answers for them about confusing issues involving politics and the various machines and machinations that are at play, the confusion of issues and criminality and corruption that they see mixed in with this, the ineffectiveness of the system where it falls down or where it seems to get sabotaged. Why do all these things happen? Well, there are a lot of reasons, and they generally are not necessarily good reasons, but they're also not necessarily complicated reasons, nor are they necessarily involving conspiracies of people working together because they have nefarious ideas. There could be lots and lots of reasons why things happen, including chance and coincidence. And I'm not saying that everything is chance and coincidence, not by a long shot. There have been many, many people over the decades in the in the intelligence community and the executive branch and in the congressional branch who have engaged in some pretty nasty, nefarious, awful stuff if you look at it from an individual moral compass position. And we can talk about the conspiracies that have been opened up or discovered or found out about, the Tuskegee experiments, Operation Paperclip, which I'll probably do some content on in the not too distant future because I'm fascinated by the ethical questions surrounding that particular conspiracy. And it was a conspiracy, and it was kept under wraps, and it was nefarious. And that happened. That's real. That's valid. That's verified. Same thing with the MK Ultra experiments, of which there were hundreds. There were, I think, 120 different projects that fit under the umbrella of MK Ultra. So it's not like there haven't been real government conspiracies where they've done things that were not great to the American population and to non-Americans and got away with it or tried to cover it up. So we know that these things are real. We even know now with Jeffrey Epstein that the pedophile accusations might not have been so off base after all. Now, does that mean that because that particular one fact happens to be true, or we might be gathering evidence of its truth, that everything else connected with that conspiracy is true? Absolutely not. No, let's not go down any more logical fallacy roads by assuming that because one piece of this is true, all of it must be true. That's the same nonsense that people get involved with into cults from. Like Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard says one thing that sounds good, and all of Scientology must be true then, So, okay, so getting back to this QAnon thing, this is just sort of the latest flavor of anti-government, deep state conspiratorial thinking. And given the, tremendous number of out-of-control factors at play right now with COVID, with politics, with the nonsense that's going on with the Postal Service right now, with the reports of pedophilia and child sexual assault and rape coming out of the Jeffrey Epstein documents and cases, we've got good reason to think that there are, people in Washington are up to some pretty, crazy shenanigans. You throw on top of that documentaries like The Family, which talk about the religious influences, the undue influence that religion holds in Washington, D.C. through the National Prayer Breakfast and through backdoor, meetings and other things that are going on with hardcore evangelical congressmen and women. I mean, you got a lot of things at play, and I've only listed a few out of the hundreds, thousands of factors that are at play every single day of the week in Washington, D.C. and in our government. And then you add the military. I mean, it's just circles within circles within circles within circles. It's just this endless array of complicated stuff. And QAnon and other like-minded conspiracy theories offer fairly simplistic explanations for these vastly complicated machines, and give people a way of looking at the world that somehow gives them satisfaction, in that it gives them satisfactory answers to questions they have, and somehow assuages or provides emotional needs that they have. And sometimes those emotional needs are not necessarily wrapped around just comfort or happiness or joy. Sometimes some people have an urgent need to be angry at something. Some people feel very, very sad all the time and don't have any idea why, and they want a causative agent for it. And a conspiracy theory of some kind can fill that need for them. And it can also fill the void of purpose, of meaning, right? They say, for many, many years now that we lead lives of quiet desperation. And that is true at times for all of us. Right? It's also true that we lead lives of quiet happiness, and we lead lives of quiet grief, and we lead lives of quiet anger, and sometimes we lead lives of very loud anger. I don't want these things to get blown out of proportion. My point is that that we have emotional needs, and these conspiracy theories, this QAnon stuff, can fill those needs. And given also the one last factor I'll throw into this mix in terms of addressing your question here, Kevin, is we also have the issue of divisiveness. That we've had decades now of very, very divisive propaganda and rhetoric being thrown around at us, directed very, very hard at us to get us fighting one another, to divide and conquer the United States. Now, whether Russia is doing that, China is doing that, other countries are doing that, yes to all the above. And we're doing that to ourselves. And that's actually the most powerful of all of this, is the divisive rhetoric and propaganda that we do to ourselves. We do it every 4 years during the presidential campaigns, actually every 2 years during the Senate races. We tar and feather one another publicly and privately on social media, on public radio, on public access, on major news media. We talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and listen and listen and listen and listen to all the reasons why we should hate each other. And through repetition and repetition of message, repetition of tone, of emotion, you create changes in society. You move large groups of people in certain directions based on whatever buttons you're pressing or hitting with them. And that's how this stuff works, right? So QAnon is a way of doing that. It's a way of a specifically targeted message to a specific targeted group of people, right, who just think that this is the explanation that they have been looking for as to why the world is as crazy it is, why the government does what it does, etc. But we all have those needs in one fashion or another. And so I guess I'm sort of taking advantage of you asking me this question to point out that this is why, with everything I've just said, I'm trying to paint the picture here that we all buy into our little slice of the world view of how we're going to look at things based on a lot on the propaganda that we put in front of our faces, that we listen to, and the echo chambers that we put ourselves in. And this is why the critical thinking is so important for all of us, not just the conspiracy guys. It's important for all of us to pay a lot of attention to the ideas that we buy into before we file them away and accept them as true. It's really important. So anyway, Kevin, thanks for giving me that opportunity to ramble about all of that. And I hope that was an interesting answer for you.